Peace and blessing, family. It's your man Maarifa, and welcome to Bible study. That's right, Bible study. It's Sunday, so you know what that means. We got to get into the scriptures, man. We're going into our esoteric Bible study where we go deep into the scriptures, verse by verse, and we uncover and unveil the mysteries of all of the hidden information that is in the scriptures, okay? So that way you'll know exactly what you claim to believe in, all right, as a Christian. All right, so as usual, like we always do at this time, we come and reading straight from Genesis. And we're going to be talking about Genesis chapter 5 out of the King James Study Bible. All right, that's what we always reading from every week, the King James Study Bible. This week, we're going to be talking about chapter 5 and the genealogy of Adam, as well as chapter 6, the flood. Very important. All right, we're going to be talking about those two things, two chapters. All right, so let's get into it. Let's not waste no time. All right, chapter 5, verse 1. This is the book of the generations of Adam, in the day that God created man. In the likeness of God made he him. Male and female created he them, and blessed them and called their name Adam, in the day when they were created. Now, remember, Genesis chapter 1, verse 27, where it said that God created male and female, created he them. You know what I'm saying? Male and female created he them. And he called their name Adam. All right. Now, I told you that we were talking about the atoms, the molecular structures of the atoms. All right. Scientific study. You got to go deeper than what you see on the surface. We're talking about atoms, scientific atoms that create the molecules and all that stuff like that, with the protons, electrons, and all that stuff like that. That's what it says right here in verse 2. Male and female created he them, and blessed them and called their name Adam. Their name, that means two, their name Adam. Okay? So they're referring to the atoms. All right? Not a man named Adam. Okay? So people get it confused. All right? Verse 3. And Adam lived 130 years and begat a son in his own likeness, after his image, and called his name Seth. All right, so Seth was the third child, allegedly, from the story of Adam and Eve, right? So the third child was mentioned, but no mention of Cain and Abel, right? So it says right here in verse 3, and Adam lived 130 years and begot a son in his own likeness, after his image, and called his name Seth. Now, this is supposed to be the descendants of Adam. All right. No mention of Cain and Abel. Cain was kicked out, punished or whatever like that, moved to another land because he murdered Abel and this, that, and the third in chapter 4, right? And God put a mark on him to protect him and all this, that, and the third. But he was still a murderer. So I guess his name was etched out of the will of the family. His name is gone. All right, so he's out of the list, okay, so to speak. All right, so verse 4. And the days of Adam after he had begotten Seth were 800 years, and he begot sons and daughters. All right, so now they're mentioning that Adam had sons and daughters as well as, Seth. Remember, I told you that the woman is marginalized in the Bible. She's placed underneath the man, discarded, set aside. She doesn't even have the significance of even being given a name. All right. There's only certain women in the Bible so far, since chapter 1 to chapter 5, that's been given a name. Okay. But the others, he said he had sons and daughters. So I guess they're insignificant. Right. In all the days that Adam lived were 930 years, and he died. Now, there's a lot of exaggeration, with these years. Okay, so all of these years, that's trying to come up with some type of lineage here, right, of Adam, and saying that Adam lived for 900 years on the earth, 900 years, which is impossible. I know we eat a lot of bad things and things of that nature, but the body is not meant to last that long, okay? The flesh of your body is temporary. Your spirit and your energy will move on. It will transition, once your body, fails you on this planet. and then you're no longer able, your energy is no longer able to sustain in this physical body. That's why your body will die and give out like a car. You know, a car can only go so many miles before it gives out. And then, you know, got to get a new car. So the energy in your spirit and your consciousness will go on, but your body will remain here on the earth. All right. So that's what they say, you die and all things of that nature. Right. But they're trying to say that Adam lived 900 years. Now, this genealogy, I'm not going to get into all the genealogy because in chapter 5, it's all the begots. You know, Seth lived 100 years and he begot Enos. And Seth lived after he begot Enos 800 years, 700 years. He begot sons and daughters, and all the days of Seth were 900 years. I'm not going to get into the begots. Now, what I'm going to do is let you know that ancient Egypt has a king's list. All right. In the temple of Seti, Seti 1, and you can go over to the temple of Seti, Seti 1 in Abydos right now today. And on the walls, you will see the cartouches of the names of the pharaoh kings in succession of the 27 dynasty periods every year from Narmer, which came in 3100 BCE. You know, Narmer, the very first pharaoh king, who united the two lands, Upper and Lower Kemet, by defeating Scorpion. All right. So those succession is trying to show you here the lineage, right? So the Greeks and the Romans, when they created the story of the biblical story, and then later the British took and created their version, they changed it, or they tried to adapt rather some form of lineage or something to try to make it so ancient and old, when actually the book is not ancient at all. There's nothing ancient about the Bible. All right. So it doesn't go further than 300 and I think I'm going to say 300 BC, where the stories are written in Greek with the Codex Sinaiticus. Codex Sinaiticus came in the 4th century CE, which is around 300 AD. All right. So it was written in Greek. All right. So by the Coptic Greeks, you know, in their priesthood, started writing these stories and things of that nature in Greek. And Codex Sinaiticus is the oldest completed version of the Bible on the planet Earth today, and is written in Greek. All right. So they stole concepts from Africans and they put it inside the biblical stories to try to make it seem as if it's ancient, more older than what it really is, because they knew Africans had, you know, kept very meticulous records of their lineage. All right. Going all the way back, dating all the way back to the time of them coming out of the mountains of the moon. All right. So the Africans have always been, you know, keeping records of their lineage, their histories, the accomplishments and things that they accomplished and things that they've done. You can go to Egypt today and you can look on the walls today of all the many wonderful, miraculous and creative and innovative things that the Africans were doing in Egypt. Okay. Egypt is in Africa. All right. It's not no sub-Saharan. That's something that the white man created to divide you and keep you separated and things of that nature, and to try to trick you into believing that Egypt is separate from Africa. It's in North Africa. It is Africa. Okay. It's Africans. So you could go back today in Egypt and look yourself. All the many wonderful things they're carved in stone on the wall or painted on the walls. And it's still there today. Still there today in 2022. That stuff was on the walls in Egypt 5,000 to 7,000 years ago. It's incredible, amazing how much the African has created. And here they're trying to plagiarize in the Bible the lineage, you know, like the Africans. Like I told you, go to the temple of Seti 1 in Abydos. The king's list is there on the wall, carved in stone. The cartouches, the names of all the pharaoh kings that came in succession. 27 dynastic periods, all the pharaoh kings, each one. Okay, except for Akhenaten. They kicked Akhenaten out. He was a heretic. Okay. But anyway, that's another story for another time. All right, so look, let me fast forward, right? So we're gonna get down here so we can get into chapter 6, right? All right. So verse 31, chapter 5, 31. In all the days of Lamech were 770 and 7 years, and he died. And Noah was 500 years, and Noah begat Shem, Ham, and Japheth. All right. So Noah was coming on the scene right here at the end of chapter 5, verse 32. And they identified his sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Very important. These three characters are going to be very important to going forward in the story, okay? And how they establish race from these three characters, all right? The white European has established race classification using these three characters in the book, okay? Allegedly, these are the sons of Noah, all right? So from that, hold that thought right there. So now we're going to move into chapter 6, all right? Chapter 6, and we're going to talk about the flood, all right? Starting at verse 1. And it came to pass when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them. So now they're giving a little credit, saying, okay, there's going to be daughters out there. So they finally got smart and started saying, hey, we got to put some women in here, right? The sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose. Okay. All right. So, and the Lord said, my spirit shall not always strive with men, for that he also is flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years. So now here's God cutting off the days of man, talking about, my spirit ain't going to always thrive with y'all. So, remember I told you there's consciousness, which is your soul, and then your spirit, your life is your life, right? It's the energy of God. God is a conscious energy, right? So now God is saying in this book, in this story, that, my spirit, my energy ain't gonna be with man forever. So now his days are numbered. They're cutting him off from 900 years. First it was 900 some years that, Adam lived, Noah lived 500 years, and then he begat 3 sons. Now all of a sudden this man can only live for 120 years. You know what I'm saying? So now they're getting realistic now. You know what I'm saying? With the years. And, so now going back to verse 2. I want to go back to verse 2 and cover something. The sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose. Now, sons of God, when you talk about the Greeks who conquered the Persians in real history, all right? The Persians, go date back to the Sumerians, right? The Sumerians came before them, the Sumerian African, all right? The Sumerian African came before the Persian. Once the albino came down, which is the Caucasian, the descendant of the Caucasians, the white Europeans, they came down and mixed in with the blood of the Sumerian. And they changed them and evolved into the Persian. Okay, so once they were conquered, the Sumerians had this ancient story, from Gilgamesh. So the Epic of Gilgamesh, from the Sumerians, written back in 2100 BCE, going down, it was a series of poems that was written about. So in those stories, the mythological stories, they talked about half human, half God-like figures, okay? So these gods, in this Epic of Gilgamesh, were walking amongst the earth, having relations with humans, women and stuff of that nature. So when the Coptic Greeks, had taken that story and added it to the Bible to be able to assimilate it and make it familiar for them to be able to indoctrinate a group of people through Hellenization, when they introduce it to you, the story, it will sound familiar to the masses of the people who were not educated, so illiterate. So once they heard it, they sound like something familiar. They've heard something similar, by their grandmothers, great-grandmothers, their elders who passed before them may have told them stories of something similar, and they reheard something from these Coptic Greeks. Now all of a sudden they accept it. They accept the story. So they placed it in this book, this Bible. in chapter 6 of Genesis, talking about the sons of God. All right. The Epic of Gilgamesh, the Sumerian ancient mythological poem about gods, and coming down, having relation with human females. All right. So that's verse 2, chapter 6. They plagiarized that and stole that and added it to their story, their version. Okay. Their version. They put it in their mythological story so that that way they can trick someone else, an African who, is of a younger generation. Right? Now, let's move on. Verse 3, and the Lord said, my spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years. Remember I told you, God cutting short the years now. Right? Then verse 4, there were giants in the earth in those days. And also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them, the same became mighty men, which were of old, men of renown. So they call these the Nephilim, right? So the Nephilim, giants coming from the sons of God, having sex with daughters of men, creating these children that are tall and special, giants. You know what I'm saying? So people will look at NBA players today, Shaq. Let's take Shaq, for instance. Shaq is 7 feet tall, 7'1", something like that, 300 something pounds. Back in them times, he would be considered Nephilim, right? Andre the Giant, the wrestler, big 7 foot, 8 foot, guy, 400 something pounds. He would be considered a Nephilim during them times. But you're looking at a mythological concept story here from the Sumerians. The African Sumerians had their own mythological story dating back to 2100 BCE. Okay, so those Sumerian Africans who lived in Iraq, they called it Mesopotamia at that time, near the Persian Gulf, right? Those Africans who migrated from Ethiopia over into the Persian Gulf, they navigated the seas and went around the Indian Ocean, went into the Persian Gulf, and then they settled in the land of Iraq, in Kuwait. Today is modern day Kuwait. Those Africans were the Sumerians. The Sumerians had their own mythological story, an Epic of Gilgamesh, which they called it. And they had stories of gods, godlike beings coming down, having relation with female humans. Okay? And in the Epic of Gilgamesh was also a flood story. Okay? It's a series of poems that the Greeks stole and plagiarized and put it inside of their mythological story, which they called the Bible. Okay? So this is the history. This is what really happened in true history and how this story was created. It was concocted. It's a mixture of everything. Every time the Greeks or the Romans go in anywhere and conquer a land, they steal the culture. They're culture vultures. They steal the information and they use it to their advantage. So they remix it and then they plagiarize it, put it into their literature, right? And then they give it back to the younger generation, their version of it, the younger generation that's coming into the earth, being born. They know no different. They know no better. So now they're being indoctrinated with this version from the information that the Greeks and the Romans stole from Africans that they killed and took their lands. When they killed them, they go in, they conquer the lands, they colonize the region, and they take everything, steal everything, and they take the culture and all of that stuff, and then they remix it, make it their own, and then they come up with a version of their own, a new version, right? That's why you have the King James Version. That's why it came from the Codex Sinaiticus, which was in Greek. Then it went to the Latin Vulgate, which was in Latin for Romans. Then it translated into, the King James Version. All right, so you got to think about all of this stuff that's happening, how they're coming up with these stories. So bits and pieces of African culture is being incorporated in the story. All right, so that's what's going on. All right, so verse 5. And God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continuously. Oh, here's the pot calling the kettle black. Here he is, God, the one who set up Adam, put him and Eve in the Garden of Eden from the very beginning, set them up to fail, with the tree of good. And I told them, don't eat of this fruit, but I'm going to put you in this garden anyway. And then putting enmity in the heart of Cain, making him jealous, not accepting his offering. This is the same God. Now all of a sudden he's talking about in verse 5. God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. I wonder why. What kind of father was God? God was a terrible father in this book. You know what I'm saying? The way he created his children and how he treated them was very, very bad. You know what I'm saying? He didn't teach them no love. He didn't teach them how to, give them no knowledge, no understanding. He set them up. He played mind games and tricks. He didn't give them no knowledge, no information. He just told them commandments. You better not do this. You better do that. And this, that. That's it. You know what I'm saying? Here, this guy. And he talking about the imagination of the thoughts of the hearts was only evil continually. He was an evil God. He's an evil God. Well, what did he expect his children to come out like? You know what I'm saying? Come on now. You can't sit. You got the pot calling the kettle black. Like, come on, man. You can't just be. No, man. All right. Okay, stop. You know what I'm saying? Have several seats, God, please. All right, because you're tripping. You're tripping, man. And then verse 6. And he repented the Lord that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him at his heart. So now here we go. Remember I told you, the imagination of the author of who wrote this version, Francis Bacon, a white European French Mason from the Rosicrucian Masonic order. He's given a human characteristic unto this God. Okay, he says it grieved him at his heart. So now all of a sudden God has a heart. God walked through the Garden of Eden, you know what I'm saying, in the cool of the day. Does that mean he got legs? God has a heart now. You know what I'm saying? So God has all of these human attributes, but he's God, creator of all things. You know what I'm saying? In the beginning, God created, you know what I'm saying, heavens and the earth. Remember all of that? But he is God. He's a human in the form of a human. Now, he got that concept from the ancient Egyptian Africans. They stole that concept from the Africans. The mythological gods of ancient Egypt all had anthropomorphic, zoomorphic, forms of humans. Body of a human, face of an animal. Anubis, you know what I'm saying? Thoth, you know what I'm saying? Or Tahuti, Tahuti, Man, I could go on, Sekbek, man, you know what I'm saying? I could go on and on. But the form of a god having a human body was very common during those times. Everybody understood that. Ancient Africans understood that. And those are the individuals who they were indoctrinating, okay, through the Hellenization process. All right. Google Hellenization and you'll see this Greco-Roman, Greeks and the Roman were Hellenizing people that they conquered and teaching them their culture, forcing their culture on them, changing their mindset, taking away their old beliefs and understandings, forcing them to accept and embrace this Greek and Roman culture now. Okay, so that's what this is. Greek and Roman. This is what this is. This is not African. None of that. Okay, this is Greek and Romans. All right. Now, verse 7. And the Lord said, I will destroy man, whom I have created from the face of the earth, both man and beast, and the creeping thing, and the fowls of the air, for it repented me that I have made them. Wow. He go kill everybody. So here's God, a murderer, Okay? He said, and God said, I will destroy man who I have created from the face of the earth. Both man and beast. A murderer. He is God, a murderer. He killing everything. Not only man, but he said, and the beast and the creeping thing and the fowls of the. Now, what did the birds and stuff and the insects do to God? How did they sin? Huh? How did they, why did they get punished and everything like that? Why? I don't understand this. Here's this allegedly loving God that all the Christians like to, sing praises to in church. God, blah, 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 all of that crazy junk. And then here he is in verse 7, chapter 6, saying, I'm going to destroy everything. I'm going to kill it all. I'm murdering everything. And what did the animals do? What did the insects do? They did, innocent. They are innocent. They didn't do nothing to nobody, man. They just living according to whatever they supposed to be doing. You know what I'm saying? Living according to nature. And then God said, I'm just going to kill them all. All of it. All of it got to go. God is a murderer. So what do you think Cain got it from? Where do you think, you know what I'm saying? What was that other dude? Lamech got it from. You know what I'm saying? They murderers. So the author is telling you, is giving you some indication that their God that they created in this book has some attributes of what their natural instincts are. Killers, conquerors. You know what I mean? The white European, if you look at their true history, you can't deny it. It's factual. It's written. It is actually recorded. So you can't sit up and say, oh, well, that's racist to say that. No, that is fact. The white European has conquered, killed, raped, murdered, destroyed, stole lands. They done it all. Their God resembles a lot of their attributes that they have. The white male European. Their God in their literature, their story resembles a lot of their attributes. Right there, verse 7, chapter 6. Okay? It said, the Lord said, I will destroy man who I have created from the face of the earth, both man and beast, and the creeping thing, and the fowls of the air, for it repenteth me that I have made them. Unreal. Unreal. Okay, but then verse 8. But Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. One man found grace. So he said, well, everybody else gonna die except for him. I like this dude right here. Noah. What's so special about Noah? We're gonna find out. All right. We're gonna find out. Now, these are the generations, verse 9, of Noah. Noah was a just man and perfect in his generations. And Noah walked with God. And Noah begat 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Now, like I told you, the author of this book are creating characters, okay? And the characters in the story so far have been white Europeans, okay? So it's just like, a character of a movie or a storyline or a book, you know what I'm saying? The characters are written, for a certain demographic, okay? So far, Adam and Eve and, Cain, Abel, and Seth and all of them, white Europeans. Lamech and all that stuff, white Europeans. Okay? So here they're going to start a distinction going forward. And as we read into further chapters, you'll start to notice. And I'm going to point things out to you in the scripture that will tell you the difference between the different races of individual peoples according to the story and how it's written. Okay? The author is setting the stage right now in Genesis chapter 6 for the different races on the planet. Okay? So I'm going to get into it. It's deeper than what you see. So right there, verse 10. Then Noah begat 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. The earth also was corrupt before God, and the earth was filled with violence. So I'm like, man, what did the earth do? What did the earth do? Man. And God looked upon the earth, and behold, it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted his way upon the earth. And God said unto Noah, the end of all flesh is come before me, for the earth is filled with violence through them, and behold, I will destroy them with the earth. So he's going to destroy not only man, the animals, insects, woman. He didn't even mention the women. He was just like, they insignificant. And then now the earth. Now the earth. So this God is a tyrant. This God is just like a man, gonna kill everything. Think about all of the murderers. You talk about Hitler, man, Napoleon Bonaparte, Leopold, who else? Just white European murderers, conquerors. Not even talking about like we're going back to the Romans. You know what I'm saying? Constantine. You know what I'm saying? Don't, oh my goodness, man. The Ptolemy Soteres. Let's not forget Alexander, the Greek. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, all of these murdering and killing and conquering white Europeans. That's all they want to do. Kill, destroy, steal. That's why in the book it said, the devils come to kill, steal, and destroy. They was talking about themselves. They were talking about white Europeans. The devil came to steal, kill, and destroy. They was talking about themselves. You know what I mean? We're going to read it. We're going to read it. But, all right, where was I? Down in verse 13. Okay. Yeah. And God said unto Noah, the end of all flesh is come before me, for the earth is filled with violence through them, and behold, I will destroy them with the earth. Make thee an ark of gopher wood. rooms, he said, shalt thou make in the ark, and shalt pitch it within the without with pitch. And this is the fashion which thou shalt make it of. The length of the ark shall be 300 cubits, and the breadth of it 50 cubits, and the height of it 30 cubits. Now pause. Right there. He's talking about building the ark, right? He's telling Noah, one dude who's supposed to be 500 years old, to build an ark. Okay? 500 years old. He wanted him to build a boat. A boat, which is 300 cubits, he said. 300 cubits, if you do the math, that's 450 feet. Okay? Which is about 120 yards. Okay? The size of a football field, the cubits, I would say that 300 cubits is about 150 yards. I'm sorry. The size of a football field is 120 yards. Right? So, just a little bit bigger than the size of a football field. This boat is supposed to be that long. Right? That's it. That's it. The size of one football field. Okay? So he wanted to build a boat. Now, this boat was not even bigger than the Titanic, which they said was the biggest boat. Now, the Titanic was 820 something feet. Right? So this ark was supposed to be 450 feet. Smaller. The Titanic was way bigger. Right? Now, if you look at a cruise ship, a Carnival cruise ship, today, the Carnival cruise ship is probably about 1,500, you know what I'm saying, feet. Way bigger than a little bitty ark. Little bitty ark. You know what I'm saying? A boat, a little bitty ark that God told this 500-year-old man to go and build. And I'm like, wait a minute, man. So listen, let me tell you something. The concept of boats came from ancient Africans. The ancient Africans were the very first navigators of the seas, the very first to build boats, very first to able to travel on the oceans in boats, using the monsoon current winds to be able to travel through the seas and go from one part of the world to the next. That's how the Africans were able to populate all over the world, over the globe. They were seafaring people. Africa was traveling. If you go to Egypt today, there's a replica of Khufu's boat right next to Khufu's pyramid in Giza. Okay, so you can see Giza. You can go to Giza right now, go to the pyramid of Khufu, and right outside of there, there's a replica inside of a museum type building, and you can see the replica of Khufu's boat that was built. The celestial. He went down the celestial Nile. Okay, so and you can look on the walls in Kemet, the chisel on the walls in Kemet, how the Africans, they had them in boats traveling on the seas in the Nile Valley, in the Nile, going down the Nile River. How you think they got all of the limestone up to Egypt? They got the limestone down from Luxor, Waset. You know what I'm saying? And then traveled up the Nile River on boats. Those limestones weigh tons. So the Africans built boats way before anything. So when the Greeks, with Alexander the Greek, came in and conquered ancient African Egypt in 332 BCE, they seen the boats. They knew that the Africans were already trading with other, Africans all over the world. There was Africans all over the world. There was Africans in, Thailand and, India. There were Africans in Sumeria. There was Africans in Europe. There was Africans in, the Philippines, in that region, Vietnam area. You know what I'm saying? There was Africans in Cambodia. The Naga Kush. The Naga Kush, man, come on, man. Africans was everywhere. So they was going on boats, traveling. So there was trade happening, a commerce. You know what I'm saying? The Africans had trade commerce with all Africans all around the globe. They was trading goods back and forth, taking that stuff on ships and taking it to other parts of the world and stuff like that. And, trading commerce and stuff like that. Coming in on the boats. Africans been doing that. So when they put it in their story, talking about, I want you to build an ark. I want you to build a boat. No. I'm like, what? Man, are you kidding me, man? Africans been had boats. Man, listen. Anyway. All right. Verse 16. A window shalt thou make to the ark, and in a cubit shalt thou finish it above. And the door of the ark shalt thou set in the side thereof. With lower, second, and third stories shalt thou make it. Verse 17. And behold, I, even I, do bring a flood of waters upon the earth to destroy all flesh, wherein is the breath of life from under heaven, and everything that is in the earth shall die. This is the God that the Christians serve. This is the God of the Greeks and the Romans that the Christians of today serve. Everything shall die. Gonna kill it all. He don't care about, he gonna kill it all. Everything. Not only the man, woman, earth, and everything. Right? This was his mindset. This is the mindset of the Christian God, which is the mindset of the author of this story, which is a white European. Come on now. Come on now. You calling yourself a Christian today, you are worshiping a white European concept of God. And a white European male, his whole mindset is that of conquest and conquering and killing and destroying and stealing. That's his whole mindset. So his God is going to resemble that. Do you understand that? His God is going to resemble the nature that he has, the nature of the white European male. And it's depicted right here in this book, in this story. If you read it, we're reading it right now. We're reading it right now, and it's telling you right there. Okay? In verse 17, in chapter 6 of Genesis, and behold, I, even I, do bring a flood of waters upon the earth to destroy all flesh, wherein is the breath of life from under heaven, and everything that is in the earth shall die. Where's the love? What happened to that? What happened to the love, man? Where is the love? You know what I'm saying? No love from this God. No, you want to kill everything, destroy it all. Now let me tell you something. When he said, I'm going to cause a flood, I'm going to bring a flood of waters. Let me tell you something where they got the concept of a flood from, okay? I told you to get the Epic of Gilgamesh. If you go back to the Sumerian poems of the Epic of Gilgamesh, you will see they had a flood story in the Epic of Gilgamesh. 2100 BCE that was written, okay? This book, this Bible started in 300 AD. 300 AD. That's like what? 1700 years after the fact. You know, the Epic of Gilgamesh came before this Bible. So the Sumerian story was already out. Okay? That means people already knew about it. Centuries and centuries and centuries and centuries before this Bible was ever created. You understand that? So they was able to take from that story and put it in their story, some version of whatever, and remix it and plagiarize it and put it in their story. A story that was already created about a flood story, the Epic of Gilgamesh. And then also this, ancient Egypt in Africa, Egypt used to flood every year in August. Every year there was a flood in Egypt around August because the monsoon would come from Ethiopia in Upper Kemet. From the mountain, the snow caps would melt and it would flush all of the water from the snow caps from the mountains in Ethiopia, flush it down into Lake Victoria, all the way out through the Nile River, and it would go all the way up 600 feet up to lower Kemet, okay, heading towards the Mediterranean Sea. And by the time it reached Cairo in Egypt, that land was flooded. And it was water and mud and silt. And the silt was so rich and plentiful that it allowed the cultivation of food. It was great soil to use to be able to cultivate plants and grow food. So that's why, you know, the ancient Africans celebrated every year when the flood came, okay? Until they, you know, cut the flooding off when they put the dam up in Aswan. All right? So they put a dam up in Aswan to kind of cut some of that flooding back. All right? But I'm going to tell you, when it flooded in Egypt, every year, annually around August, okay, it would flood in Egypt every year. So flooding was nothing new, okay? It was nothing new about, you know what I'm saying? So when the Greeks and the Romans came in and conquered, you know, ancient Egypt, they knew that it was flood every year. Okay, they knew. They like, man, it's flooding, you know what I'm saying? So it's like almost like something, you know, they would say like would destroy something like that. But it brought natural silt, which was a great soil to help cultivate and grow food. Okay, so that's God's blessing coming from the universe, natural resources, you know, from the snow-capped mountains and things like that, and melting and going down into the ocean and pushing, not in the ocean, but pushing that into the river up the Nile, and it was flood and bring that silt. Okay, a flood story. Here they looking at verse 17. This God, this fake mythological Greek Roman God, talking about, oh, I'm gonna bring a flood of water upon the earth to destroy all flesh. Okay. All right, man, whatever. You know what I'm saying? So if you understand real history and you understand what came before this story, then you can be like, it'll be easy. Be like, I don't know. You know, you Google this stuff. Please Google. Please Google the Nile River flooding, annual river flooding. Please Google the Epic of Gilgamesh. Please Google that and read that stuff. You know what I'm saying? And then you tie it back to this story here where they talking about. You know, Google what year was this book created. Google all that stuff. And you can see And I'm gonna tell you something too. Also, if a flood happened, right? If a flood happened to destroy the earth, how then is the Sphinx? Haru and Makhet. Haru and Makhet is the Sphinx. You know what I'm saying? The lion body, the head of a woman. Pharaoh head of the woman looks like in Egypt right now, right next in Giza, right next to the three pyramids, Khufu, Khafra, Menkaure. You know what I'm saying? So how did the Sphinx still survive? The Sphinx has been on the planet Earth since 7,000 years. It may even go back further than that. It may go back 10,000 years. So how in the world, if this book was written in 300 AD, right? How did they get these stories? Okay, so they try to say the author of these stories, right? Who was there to eyewitness this stuff? And how did they pass this story from generation to generation? You know what I'm saying? Who was there to pass this story down? You know what I'm saying? So Africans, we have the tradition of oral griot. You know what I'm saying? When we tell the story of our people and our tribes and stuff, and the griots, they will raise them up to be able to, continue the story, for the next generation. But this allegedly is the very beginning of all time. Allegedly, according to this book. This is supposed to be the very beginning. So who was able to keep the record, an accurate record? Look how accurate this and detailed information this is. All right. So this is like, and God, behold, I even do bring a flood of water. Wherein is a breath of life? Who told him this information? I mean, how did this person get all of this detailed information that God said this to Noah, and then Noah said that to God, and then he came back and said, who was there when God had the conversation with Cain and asked him, you know what I'm saying, where's your brother at? Who was there to write that? Who was there to record that? And he's telling God, am I my brother's keeper? It's supposed to be God and Cain. How did the author of this story, come on, man, you got to use your common sense. How did the author of that story get that inside information? That's a private conversation. How did the author of this story get the conversation where God told Adam not to eat of the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, when it was supposed to be just God and Adam? Gave them, man. Boy, if y'all don't stop, if y'all don't stop, if y'all don't stop and wake up, oh my gosh, man, come on now. Anyway, let's move on. Verse 18. But with thee will I establish my covenant. This is God talking to Noah, right? And thou shalt come into the ark, thou and thy sons, and thy wife and thy sons' wives with thee, and of every living thing of all flesh, 2 of every sort shalt thou bring into the ark to keep them alive with thee. They shall be male and female. Remember, duality, male, female. You can't procreate without a male or female, the opposite. You can't. It's impossible. So now he's telling him, Noah, bring 2 of everything that's living, all the animals, on the earth in the ark with you. This small little 450-foot ark, no bigger than a football field. Okay? No bigger than a football field. I want you to bring 2 of everything, of every animal into this thing. So verse 20, he says, of fowls after their kind, and of cattle after their kind, of every creeping thing of the earth after his kind, 2 of every sort shall come into thee to keep them alive. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Okay, so what about the giraffe? How do we get that? What about the elephant? What about the lion? The silverback gorilla? What about the rhinoceros? What about the dinosaurs? What about the little lizard? What about the penguin? The penguin is coming from Arctic area regions. How did that small little penguin just bounce his way and make his way to this ark? How? Man, if y'all don't stop. This little bitty ark is supposed to hold all of those animals that we see today. And some people try to say, Christians like to say, well, there was a different version of those animals back then. It wasn't, they evolved over time. They evolved and then they became the animals that you see today. No, the animals that you see today are the same animals from yesterday. Ain't no evolution in that. You know what I'm saying? Human beings are the same. Now, there may be difference in the pigmentation of the skin because of a mutation that occurred in the DNA structure, but everything's still the same. You still got 2 ears, 2 eyes, hair, you know what I'm saying? The nose, hands, fingers. Everything's still the same about a human except, you know what I'm saying, the color of the eyes and the pigmentation of the skin. You know, the lack of melanin. But everything else is the same. You can't, man. Oh my goodness, man. What about, oh my goodness, man. This stuff is so unreal. It is ridiculous. Okay? So if you sit up here reading this stuff and he's saying 2 of every shall become to the ark to keep them alive, 2 of every animal, and you put it on this small little 450-foot ark. Now, what happens with, okay, let me move on. Let me finish this out. Verse 21, and take thou unto thee of all food that is eaten, and thou shalt gather it to thee, and it shall be for food for thee and for them. Thus did Noah according to all that God commanded him. So did he. That's the end of chapter 6. And I'm going to tell you, man, this is so unrealistic. It's pathetic. This is so unrealistic. I mean, you can't possibly do it. This is like some fairy tale, mythological, fantasy type stuff. Ain't no way possible for you to put all 2 of every animal on there, insect and bird and all of that stuff. What about the hawk? What about the okay, so all these animals get along with each other, right? We assuming, right? So they not gonna have no fights, no quarrels, no, you know what I'm saying? And then we assuming that these animals are not going to, you know, on the bathroom. They potty my dogs, they have to go pee. You know what I'm saying? Pee and poop. You know what I'm saying? All the time. I'm letting them outside and stuff like that. They going to pee and poop. I can only imagine on a boat, a small little tiny boat with all of these 2 of everything. And you talking about a giraffe, a gorilla, monkeys. You talking about rhinoceros. You talking about whales. You talking about little penguins and everything, and hawks and buzzards, vultures, and all type of insects and roaches and all type of ants. Come on, man. Come on, man. Come on, man. Wake up. Use your common sense. It's not possible. Okay? The Greeks and the Romans stole this culture, these stories, these mythological stories, from the African Sumerians, okay? From the Epic of Gilgamesh, which was written in 2100 BCE. Then they also noticed that the ancient African Egyptians had things that are going on in their lands when they conquered into North Africa. The flooding of the land every year, but it brought rich silk and allowed the cultivation of food to grow for the ancient Africans in that region. Then, for this God, the way they wrote this God, the character of this God wanted to destroy and kill everything. Not just man, the animals, the insects, and the earth. It mentioned the earth as well. So you're talking about the mindset of the white European. If you look back on real history, you will see it is recorded. These are facts. Who were the cause? Who were the cause of the COVID-19? White Europeans. They cooked that in a lab, and then they took it to China, dropped it off, and blamed them. Who dropped the bomb on Hiroshima? Who created the atomic bomb? White Europeans. All they want to do, conquer, kill, destroy, steal. They want to be in power. They want to control the world. Ever since Alexander the Greek. Alexander the Greek, his generals Ptolemy Soter. Then you go into the Roman era. Constantine. You know what I'm saying? I can't remember the other ones. Then you get into the other conquerors. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy. If you look at the history, the white European has been killing. They wiped out lands. They just go in and kill everything. They brought disease over to the Caribbeans, syphilis and everything. Nasty disease field, just killed off all of the indigenous people of those lands. You know what I'm saying? And just murdered them, stole their land, and then they turned around and gave them this Bible in exchange for that. So they come in, steal the land and conquer everything, and then they give you this Bible instead. And then the people just accept it. Oh, that's God. It's so crazy to me. Anyway, but listen. Listen, man. That's been another Maarifa moment where knowledge has been reborn. All right? So remember, man, the more you know, the more you'll grow, and the better off we all shall be. So until next time, I'll say, love and light. Peace.